This video is about IELTS speaking module part 1, 2 and 3, and we are going to talk about things in detail. If you haven't watched my previous videos, I would suggest you to watch all of them, and this way you will have a better understanding of the whole course. Lecture 9 was about IELTS speaking, but that was a brief introduction. Now we will go into detail with some examples. Right, the first thing is IELTS speaking module structure. You know that there are 3 parts, 3 sections, and the speaking time is 11 to 14 minutes. We have talked about the structure, the 3 parts in my previous video as well, but here let us revise that. The first part is interview. The second one is the long run, where candidate speaks on a given topic, and part 3 is a two-way discussion, which is a discussion between the examiner and the candidate. Okay, this is the time scheme for all 3 parts. Part 1 is 4 to 5 minutes long, where the interview takes place, and I mean, this is where speaking on familiar topics, the examiners ask you questions about yourself, your city, country, family, etc. Part 2 is 3 to 4 minutes, and this is called long turn or extended speaking, or sometimes it is known as monologue, where the examiner gives you a cue card and you have to speak on the topic on your own for the given amount of time. And the last one is 4 to 5 minutes long. This is a discussion two-way, and it's a topic-based discussion. Let us now go into more detail in each part. Interview is the part 1. In the first part of the speaking section, you will usually be asked to give your name, your identification, and then you basic information, for example, your hometown, full information about it, what do you do. Then if this question is asked, tell about your job or studies and subjects, and a bit more detail. For example, if it is your job, so what kind of job it is, why do you do it, why you like it, what are the good things about it, what are the bad things about it, how long have you been doing it for, stuff like that. 2 other topics, for example, your family, your hobbies, or your food preferences, English courses, reasons for taking IELTS exam, etc. See in the next slides as well. So these are some of the topics that will be asked, okay, but we have a list of other topics as well. Okay, here are some topics that are often repeated in IELTS speaking test part 1. You can stop the video and make a note of these topics. So I wouldn't read all of them. So for example, family, work, education, I will read random things: smoking, marriage, television, tourism, games and music. You can see that these are, most of these topics are topics that you experience in your day-to-day life, and there is nothing strange or novel about them. The only thing that will make difference is how you respond to them, how interesting you can make these simple things into an extraordinary explanation. So when you speak correctly, you speak clearly, and speak with confidence, and make your answers interesting by providing more than basic information. This can also be done through giving you personal examples, or examples from your friends or family, whatever it is, but you have to give interesting answers. What is the most important thing here? The speaking module rates your ability to communicate clearly and correctly and meaningfully in English in a variety of situations. That is the main idea behind all these speaking tests, wherever, I mean, whatever it is, whether it's IELTS or any other exam. Speaking activity means whether you can communicate confidently and clearly or not. That's the thing. You are interviewed alone by an examiner, and the conversation is recorded. The speaking module has 3 parts. We talked about that, and the topics vary from candidate to candidate. Right, so familiarize yourself with common topics, the ones that I listed on my previous slide. These are some of them, okay. and they are enough if you want to practice all of them. But at the same time, try to get more topics, think about, do some research, familiarize yourself. That's the most important thing. Familiarize means that you should be able to speak on each of those topics that I listed on the previous slide. You should be able to speak in a very nice and good fluent way on each of that. So you need to do practice extensively with a teacher so you can get feedback. Yes, whenever you practice, ask for feedback. If you are practicing in a school or college, or if you're taking up a course, or if you are asking your friends or family to help, but ask them to give you honest feedback, which is very, very important. Sometimes honest feedbacks give you a setback, and I mean, it is very difficult to tolerate, but I tell you, this is the most important thing, to get a negative, sometimes not negative, constructive feedback, I would say, which is based on the truth, so that corrects you. Okay, well, if you let's say if you are not very good at speaking at the moment, I mean, you can become good, but your friend out of courtesy says, oh, you're very good, well done, so you don't find your mistakes, you don't know what is lacking. So ask for good, honest feedback. Okay, the part 2 is long run. You need to speak for about 1 and 2 minutes on a simple topic. So for example, I mean, there is a list of topics on the next slide, and you will find those very interesting, very helpful. But first of all, talk about these things. The topics are based on personal experiences. You are handed a card with topic, and you have 1 minute to prepare your talk. You can make notes and use those notes during your talk. I mean, those are right in front of you, so you can look at them and you can use them. The examiner may or may not ask you questions during this part of the test, so you must know how to answer all questions and speak fluently. Mostly examiners don't ask questions in part 2, so any possible questions should be answered in your talk. So your talk should be comprehensive. It should be very, very nice and coherent, and comprehensiveness is something which I would suggest is at the top of everything. Okay, here are some topics. You might see that the first one is highlighted. I'll tell you why, but here are some topics that can be given to speak on. This is your long term. For example, I wouldn't read the whole thing. You can stop the video and you can make a note of these, or you can just read them. Describe someone in your family whom you like. Describe a subject you enjoyed studying at school. For example, describe a song you like, and stuff like that. Now the first one is highlighted because I will take this as an example, and I will give you a sample response on the next slide, and then we will be analyzing how to prepare on a topic. So this would be the example taken, right, to do the task. You can apply the same principles on every other topic. So this is your sample response. Describe someone in your family. I would just read the first paragraph. The person in my family I really like and also love is my mother. She is a very special person, and I cannot imagine what I would be without her. Now this is enough stuff to speak for 2 minutes at least. So you should stop the video, have a look at this, or if you can get similar stuff from your books or online or internet, whatever, but try to read these things. They will give you, I'm not saying that you should copy them and memorize them, they will give you a very good idea. Reading such stuff more and more makes you fluent, I tell you. Right, so now we are going to analyze this describe someone in your family topic in a bit more detail. To speak on any given topic, remember to ask yourself these questions: what, why, when, where, who, how. Okay, so for example, if you are given a topic, ask yourself these questions and you will see that you will get enough material to speak. You will see the example on the next slide as well. Example, you remember I highlighted this one in the list of topics. So describe someone in your family whom you like. Now, how do you ask yourself different questions? For example, what is the name of that person and what is he to you? Why do you like him, or why does she or he impress you? Why did you start knowing him? Sorry, when did you, or when do you see him often? Where does he or she live? Who is he? Tell about his relation to you, his family's children, etc. How do you know him? How does he look like? How does he behave? I mean, see, you can ask millions of questions with that, with these words. So these are very, very strong cues to get information, to brainstorm, to get ideas. So every time you come across a topic, ask these questions to yourself. So remember always, 5Ws. One is very, very important. This is just one example. You can ask yourself as many questions as you could with any one of these in any sequence. Yeah, so apply this on any topic. I mean, go back to the list of topics and apply what, why, when, where, who, how on all these topics and see how many ideas you generate. Part 3 is a two-way discussion, and in part 3 you will participate in a two-way discussion with your examiner and on the topic you spoke about in part 2. We have already talked about this. In part 3 you will be asked more general or in-depth questions to test your ability. We will have a look at that in detail as well. So expand on a topic and express your opinions rather than your personal experiences. So this is more abstract ideas that are discussed, theory, not practical experience, right? Okay, here we go. In your part 2 long term, the topic was, for example, describe a teacher you had in school. Now be careful about this. I'll stay on this slide for some time. So in your part 2 you were given a cue card and you chose to speak about teacher. Describe a teacher you had in school. I mean, that was the cue card. That was what it said on the cue card. So it is very specific. You only talked about your school teacher. So why did you like him or her, and how long have she or he taught you, been teaching you, and what are the best qualities of that person, what is different in that person that is not in another person that you like that person, stuff like that. Now in part 3 it might be about education. Why? Because teacher, favorite teacher, and education are very linked. Okay, so part 2 and 3 are always linked. I will tell you how to link things in the coming slides. Education system in your country, training, the importance of training, the internet in education, and changes in education in the last 20 years. I mean, be careful about this last sentence or last point. Most of the time examiners ask you to compare things now and what were they in the past, like 5 years ago or 10 years ago. So see that in part 2 you describe a teacher, in part 3 you talked about general things but related to part 2, education system, how things have changed and all that stuff. The bottom line is you will be required to discuss on a related topic that you spoke about in part 2. So when you practice any topic for part 2, try to keep in mind any related topics to part 3. Alright, so you have to link part 2 and 3. See the next slide to understand how to make a link between part 2 and part 3 topics. Alright, so let us see an example. Here we go. I'm not going to read all of them. I'll just take the first one and see. So this was your topic. Let me choose the pencil. Right, so this was your topic in part 2, and it says describe someone in your family who you like. Okay, so this is your topic in part 2, so very specific. For example, you like your mom, yeah, or you like your dad. Yeah, let me put D as well. So you like your mom or you like your dad, so you are very specific about these two people. I mean, it's very targeted speaking. Now here in part 3 you could see it's more general. What is the importance of family in a society? how does the family system affect individuals, and what is the family system in your culture? I mean, there are millions of other questions, but these are just 3 examples. So part 2, narrow. Part 3, wider. Okay, so part 3, shallow. Part 2, shallow. Part 3, deeper. You understand that? So that is how. So every time you choose a topic, you try to think about some relevant topics, related topics, prepare materials for that. So for example, job, so you can talk about problems in your country, unemployment, jobs, what type of jobs, what are the salary packages, why do you think this is happening, how has a job industry changed over the last 20 years, 10 years, all that stuff. So always try to link part 2 and part 3. So whenever you have a topic in part 2, think about relevant topics, make notes, and prepare material for them. Golden quotes. Be a good listener, because trained ears will never get you in trouble. I mentioned that somewhere else as well. So listening is important. If you have got trained ears, you will get many clues from the examiner's talk. So listen very carefully to the examiner, try to understand examiner's points, think quickly, and speak out. This is how you do things in IELTS speaking module. All right. So far we have discussed everything about how the structure of IELTS speaking exams and how you prepare. Right, here are some 15 tips for you that will definitely help you to prepare things for you. In the next slides you will find some useful tips to get higher marks. I mean, these are based on my personal experience of teaching and my experience, which is spread over 2 decades of teaching. It might not work. Some of them might not work for you, or some of them you might not agree with, but that is fine. Okay, so not everything works for everybody, but here are 15 top tips that you can have a look, and if you think they can help you, do apply them, and I'm sure that you will good grades, bands actually. All right, tip 1, give full answers. Any speaking tests, give full answers. A one-word answer is not acceptable. This does not tell the proficiency of your language, the skill, or how good you are at something. Include more information. So here is an example. For example, the examiner says, where are you from? The candidate says, I'm from a name of, for example, I'm from the UK, I live in London, and I've been living there since my childhood. Okay, so you see that you can't I mean, you can say I'm from UK, but it does not tell more about your speaking ability. So the more you speak, the better, but there is a limit to everything. This shows the examiner you're a confident speaker in English, but avoid speaking for too long, or the examiner will think you have misunderstood the question. Now you could see that it's up to your judgment. It's a balance that you have to strike between things. You don't speak too long, you don't speak too short. You should know when to speak and when to stop. Okay, this comes with practice. Number 2, speak clearly and do not worry about your accent. Everyone has an accent when they speak English. The important points are: try to speak clearly so the examiner can understand you. Rehearse in advance and overcome any obvious pronunciation problems. It's not about English only, it's about any language. There are certain words that are difficult to pronounce. There are certain words that are kind of tongue twisters. You cannot say them one after the other. So what you do is practice. Okay, if you make a mistake, don't worry, just correct yourself and keep going. Everybody makes mistakes. Even the examiner sometimes make mistake, and they say, oh, excuse, sorry for that, and then they carry on. But don't start worrying, and don't stop and start crying. No, you carry on. Pronunciation is more important than accent, so use a dictionary or talking dictionary to improve pronunciation. These days there are so many things on the internet, you can find pronunciation of any word in the world. Number 3, use descriptive words. Descriptive words are those which create pictures in your mind, describe things, and avoid using these things: good, bad, nice, okay, these types. So these words are banned for you, okay, for some time. Use exciting words. For example, instead of good, say brilliant, fantastic, fabulous, gorgeous, stuff like that. Use sophisticated words for every single word that you know. For example, instead of using happy, why don't you use thrilled? And instead of using sad, you can use depressed, you can use melancholic, stuff like that. So see, you are saying the same thing but using a better form of language, better version of language. So this is what the examiners like to see and watch and examine. 4. Sometimes students murmur and speak very softly or slowly or in low tone, low voice, because they are nervous or unsure of their words. So don't do that. Speak up means speak loudly. Use simple, correct language rather than complicated vocabulary. Now, sometimes it is better to use simple language. Now, you would say that the teacher, I am telling you to use sophisticated language on one slide and simple language on the other slide. Now, look at the situation. Now, if you cannot find any sophisticated words or language, so it is far better to speak simple language than staying quiet, because it is a speaking test. If you stay quiet, if you don't speak, you will fail. Simple. I mean, fail in a way that you will get the lowest band. So need to speak up, speak loudly enough to examiner can understand you what you say. So don't be too loud, don't be too low. It's a, I mean, medium, you could say, volume. Tip number 5, do not use slang. Extremely bad. Never use slang or informal language in any language test. In a very short time, you need to display the best language that you have been learning all your life. So in 14 minutes, you could say, you have to demonstrate to the examiner that you are a very good user of a good language. So I have 2 kids. Wrong, I mean, not wrong, but it is informal. You have to say, I've got 2 children. So kids is informal, B is formal. Number 6, speak fluently, smoothly, continuously to an effective speed. Speaking too fast or too slow is not natural, and take control of your voice and tone throughout. I mean, relax, be confident, speak loud, and speak at your natural pace. Don't get nervous and don't speed up. When you speak fluently, you use fillers. For example, well, like, you know, I guess, I mean, etc. Well, I like Shakespeare, but you know, I don't find any time to read him. These fillers not only give you time to think, but they keep the speech flowing, moving. Okay, the fluency is not broken if you use them, so they are good to use. So they give your speech fluency and to make your speech sound more natural. All right, but avoid overusing them. Avoid overusing anything, not only fillers. Tip number 7, do not try to memorize answer. This is extremely bad idea. Examiners are extremely experienced, so they can tell when you are memorizing, when you have memorized. So what they do is, if they understand that you are reciting something from your memory, then they change the subject or give you a lower score, which is not good for you. Therefore, practice speaking on a variety of topics, but do not memorize. Number 8, explain names and words which are in another language. For example, if you use a word which is not English, or it's a different terminology, it's a name of a festival or it's a name of a food, you know that. So try to say the words clearly and give the meanings afterwards so that the examiner can follow your explanation. So you say a word and you say, oh, this means this in my language, or in my country. In English it means this, so the examiner understands what you are saying. Number 9, Ask questions if necessary in part 3 only. You cannot ask questions in part 1 and 2, but 3, yes, you can. So do ask questions if something is not clear in order to be on the right track. Remember one thing, most people believe that asking question means that you do not understand, whereas it's the other way around. Asking question means you understand. Asking question means that something was not probably audible, so you ask them again. So asking question does not go against you, it goes in favor of you. So it is better to ask question, make things clear, and then answer, rather than misunderstanding a question and answering the wrong answer. Remember one thing, misunderstanding in any exam is a terrible mistake. Number 10, practice speaking with a watch. It is very important to understand what to say in 2 minutes. So use a stopwatch to practice speaking for 2 minutes and try to focus on content and quality. What you can do is you can make a plan. For example, you can write down things, you can write down bullet points and stuff like that, and try to cover them in 2 minutes and see whether you can. If all of them are good, try to squeeze them somehow in 2 minutes, and this will help you to squeeze good material into 2 minutes, and you can get control of things then. All right, so practice saying variety of things instead of repeating the same sentences. Tip number 11, stay on the topic. Do not change the topic or subject, otherwise the examiner will think you have misunderstood the topic or may give you a lower mark. Now, why people change topic? There could be two things, intentionally or unintentionally. If you change the topic intentionally, it means that you have not enough material to speak on. If it is unintentional, then it means that you do not understand the topic. So be careful about these. Number 12, right, ask each other questions about, have daily discussions with friends and ask each other questions about current events and develop your ability to speak on various topics. Use different sentence structure and vocabulary. So the best way to improve speaking is speaking, and speaking with somebody who can give you feedback and who can be available to you. So arrange this thing. Tip number 13, be careful in using specific conjugation. For example, you have to be very consistent. In the UK, government, police and staff are plural collective nouns, so they take plural verbs. For example, in the UK they say government are, not government is, which is in the United States. Police are in UK, police is USA, staff are, staff is. So this is the difference. These are just 3 examples. Yeah, you can research on that and try to, I mean, it's not wrong to use the USA English or UK, but whatever you use should be consistent. Alright, so now same thing, be careful in using plural, singular and countable and uncountable nouns. So for example, child and children. So children is incorrect, child is correct. These are very simple things. You know these things better than I do, or you have no problem. I'm just trying to give you an example that these are the small things which make big difference. Children's are wrong, children are. In English, furniture, information and advice, etc. are uncountable nouns, so they take singular verbs. So for example, the furniture is old, but not the furniture are old. Yes, if you say the pieces of furniture are old, that's a different thing. Pieces, now pieces is countable, not furniture. His advice does not work, advice is uncountable. But if pieces of advice, that's a different thing. The information is correct. So see that furniture, advice and information takes singular verbs, is, does, is. Be careful in the use of singular and plural verbs. For example, neither, nor, either, or, both and. So how do they use? Neither my wife nor my daughter has watched. So you would be thinking, there is a wife, there's a daughter, why has? So this is, so neither and nor, either and or, both and. So these are used for singulars and this is used for plurals. So you have to be very careful about that. So you stop that and see how does that work. and how the verbs are used in a specific way. These are a couple of examples. You can work about these. Last tip is the following pronouns always take singular verbs. Somebody is always singular. So he thinks somebody is. You could see that after somebody, someone, anybody, you see is or was. So that means these are singular. They are always used singular. So have a look at them, stop the video, and then watch them, write them, take down, take notes. Right, so this is the end of this presentation, and the last tip is there's only one place in the world where success comes before work, and that is dictionary. Right, so the dictionary is in alphabetical order, obviously. So S comes before W in the dictionary, yeah, because S is before W. So success comes before work in the dictionary only, not in actual life. So in actual life it is the other way around. You work first and then you get success. So what I mean to say is that try to prepare yourself and practice a lot, spend some time, actually allocate 1 to 2 hours every day, all right, and stick to that schedule, stick to that timetable. And I tell you one more thing, at this point you have the ability to increase your score from 4 5 and take it to 7 or 8 bands easily, provided you work properly and you get sound training, good training. You don't have to go to any training school if you can't afford, but you can do it on your own. The most important thing is start reading extensively and start writing whatever comes to your mind. Yeah, I'm sure that this series of lectures was helpful. This course was helpful for you, and if you have any question you can ask me. I wish you all the best, and bye.